Going beyond the headlines. Asking the questions you want answered. Exploring government policies and how they impact you. We are delving deeper.
Good evening and welcome to Delving Deeper. I'm your host, Sonolala, and joining us this evening is the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, Dr. Wendell Wallace. Good evening, Dr. Wallace. Welcome to Delving Deeper.
Good evening, Sonel. It's a pleasure to be here.
Let's begin with you explaining exactly what's the role and the function of the Police Service Commission.
Well, the role and the functions of the Police Service Commission, they're enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. And basically, what people know about the Commission, the PSC, is that we have the responsibility to manage the top 4 individuals in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, namely the Commissioner of Police and the 3 Deputy Commissioners of Police. There are other functions, for example, discipline and appeals, that go a bit deeper than the top 4 in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. But that's the basic remit of the Police Service Commission.
You were appointed Chairman of the Commission just about a month ago, November 22nd to be exact. What would be some areas of focus during your tenure?
Well, as I said on the date of appointment, it's not so much the areas that I intend to focus on, but basically what the team intend to focus on. But one of the areas that I mentioned is that of accountability, ensuring that the executive of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service understands fully well that whatever actions they take or actions that they fail to take will ultimately impact the citizenry of Trinidad and Tobago. And I made mention of a recent acquittal of some police officers for non-submission of files, etc. I know these are some of the things that I would like to address, as I said, as part of the team. But primarily, accountability is one of the areas or the key areas for me.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that because, recently we saw a dozen officers walk free after 2 separate cases, one extortion and I believe one was bribery. What's your views on this?
Well, as I mentioned again quite early in my tenure on appointment, that some of these matters are actually being looked at by the Commissioner of Police, and I don't wish to make too many pronouncements on them. But what I can say is that over the years within the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there are too many incidents such as this that you hear about them in the media and then they die a natural death. So I would like to see something being done, and not necessarily in the context of punishment, but maybe some sort of remedial action to ensure that these occurrences that they are brought to an end.
We always hear about the President Anthony Carmona a couple of years ago talked about the powers he has, and what do you think the Police Service Commission, do you have powers and powers in terms of, I know you talked about the appointment of the police commissioner and the deputy police commissioners, but do you have power and how much power do you have?
Well, the power is vested in the Police Service Commission. And, the former chair, who I must acknowledge, the former chairman, Justice Judith Jones, mentioned in her last report that the Police Service Commission really lacks bite in some of the activities that they want to do. I have looked at what Justice Jones has said, and, there is very much truth based on how the Constitution frames the work of the Police Service Commission. I intend to attempt to circumvent some of those challenges. I do not wish to go public to say exactly what I intend to do because I would have to carry it to the entire team first. But there are particular approaches that I intend to put to my team to determine, okay, how can we work around these challenges? But indeed, the PSC really needs a bit more bite.
In the current framework, as you spoke about it, there's a need to revamp that in terms of what the police service can do and cannot do. What do you think needs to be done? Or are you lobbying for the Police Service Commission to have to remedy that framework?
Because we are recently installed, there are things that we have not worked out just yet, right? There are things that we have spoken about as individuals, after being appointed, but we certainly would like to meet first, and then we would go forward in some of the ideas. We still have ideas in our heads, but we want to rationalize them. We want to ensure that we have buy-in from the team, and we want to ensure that we have buy-in, most importantly, from the Commissioner of Police, from the Deputy Commissioners. We want to ensure that we have buy-in from the legal team, because one of the things we don't wish to do is to make suggestions or to take actions that contravene with our roles and with our functions. Excuse me.
How long is your tenure? As I know you were just appointed on November 22nd. How long is your tenure? And can you say if it would be something that you would possibly look after in your tenure in terms of actually trying to review that framework of the Police Service Commission?
Yes. The tenure for us, it's 3 years. And I'm hoping that I would do a very good job. I'm hoping that the team would do a good job so that I can be reappointed. For me, quite a lot of the work that we tend to facilitate tends to be short-term. And if you don't have proper succession planning or long-term planning, then you'd have to sort of reinvent the wheel. And for me as an individual, I really think that 6 years would be sufficient to deal with some of the administrative, infrastructural, and some of the other issues that I am seeing at first brush.
You would have been a police officer just under 2 decades. I understand it's about 19 years. During your time in service, you'd recall that in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, it operated without a substantive commissioner of police for a number of years. How is the commission going to ensure that these vacancies in terms of the police, the commissioner and the deputy commissioners of police are filled in somewhat of a timely manner?
Well, as you know, again, we are limited by what we can do in terms of the Constitution. So we go through the process, or we will be going through that process, and we will be submitting the list, the top candidates, right? We will be submitting that list. And when that is done, of course, you know that the final approval comes from the Parliament. So the team, we have already discussed on an individual basis that we'd like to have that process conducted in a very timely manner. And once that process is completed, then we would have done our part, and then we leave it up to the others who have to do their part. But certainly, timeliness is key in the process. And of course, with timeliness comes efficiency. You do not wish to appoint individuals without having the necessary background checks and all that goes with it. So you want to ensure that the person or persons who are appointed really fit the mandate to perform, whether it's as a commissioner of police or a deputy commissioner of police.
I hear you when you say, you want to fill these vacancies in a timely manner. And I know the background checks take some time, but why it is that these take so long to fill these vacancies?
Well, from the perspective of an investigator, a former investigator, I know that background checks can really be demanding, and they can take a very long time to complete. Now, you have to balance timeliness with accuracy. And I would rather err on the side of accuracy more than timeliness. As I said, it's a delicate balance. So the process will take place. The process, in fact, has started. The process will continue. From the team's perspective, we would again like it to be completed in a timely manner, yet we would want it to be accurate as well.
What goes into actually submitting or selecting, police commissioner and deputy police commissioners? Is it almost like a point system? What goes into, I know the background checks are a major thing as well, but tell us about those details in terms of selecting a police commissioner.
Well, the process is wide-ranging. And you, for example, you must look at the person's career path, you look at their qualifications, you look at their training. So it's not what some people see as the very small picture of only a background check. The background check is simply one component. You certainly have to look at, can this individual perform the task more or less on the fly, right? So you would want someone who has, for example, communication skills, the requisite educational background. So it's a whole package. You also want persons who the commission thinks that they are suitable, that they are capable enough to perform the task. Now remember, this is leading the entire Trinidad and Tobago police service. And you want to ensure that the person and or persons who are selected, that they're really up to the task. Because this is no easy feat, as you would be aware. Leading the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for some persons is a job that they would avoid. But it's a task that someone has to do, and certainly we intend to select. When that process goes through, we hope, and I know that we'll be selecting the best persons for the job.
And just for clarification, Dr. Wallace, has the process actually started for the selection of a new police commissioner?
Yes, the process for the selection of a new commissioner of police for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has started. But be mindful that the process was started before the current commission had been installed. So the process has been ongoing. I cannot see how far the process has gotten to, but yes, the process has actually started.
And I know you were appointed on November 22nd, just last month, but is there a deadline date you are working with?
Well, there's no firm deadline date, but what I can see is that the current commissioner should be demitting office by May of 2025. And certainly, we will work assiduously to ensure that someone is selected in time for the commissioner, whether she has to demit office or not. But we will certainly ensure that there is a commissioner in place by that time.
Hypothetically, though, if something happens and you can't get someone in the post, can her term be extended for a couple of months, or can we have someone else acting in the position until you find a suitable replacement?
Well, hypothetically speaking, I'm of the opinion that one of the deputies can act, and it is also possible that the term of the current commissioner can be extended as well. And as you said, I'm just responding from a hypothetical perspective. Nothing is set in stone. I don't want people to think that this is what will be happening. Yeah.
Has the criteria or the requirements changed over the years, and do you believe that it needs changing to select these commissioners of police, deputy commissioners of police? Well,
if you go back, let's say probably 25 to 30 years, you've had a host of changes. You've had, for example, it's the George Mason University team that did some work in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service in terms of reformation and, selecting of commissioners. We've had changes. So at one point in time, basically you must have been a member of the police service. You must have grown up in the police service. Now you can actually have someone from outside of the organization. So you've always had change. And in fact, policing it's in evolution, right? Policing has changed from 1829 in England. It has changed to now, and it will continue to evolve. So you will see, or you might see at some point in time, I'm not saying, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the commission, I'm simply sharing my thoughts here, that at some time in the future, maybe next 10, maybe next 15 years, you might as well see maybe someone move from the position of a sergeant or inspector to the first division, because the legislation is actually there where someone can become a member of the police service and have what, for example, in Jamaica, or they call a fast tracking system, where someone can move from the second division into the first division and potentially assume executive functions.
Are foreign nationals allowed to apply for the post of police commissioner?
Well, we've had Dwayne Gibbs and Jack Iwatsky as commissioner and deputy commissioners. So when you're looking for commissioners, the pool is a bit wide. Commissioners and deputy commissioner, the pool is widened because you want to attract the best potential candidates. So the pool is widened in that regard, or the pool has widened in that regard.
Over the years, I'm not sure if you know, but have we gotten submissions from those in the region, those internationally?
Well, from looking at some of the names I've seen and from conjecture, from hearing, I do not have the first-hand information, but as I mentioned, you have Jack Iwatsky, you have Dwayne Gibbs. So certainly we've had persons from outside of Trinidad and Tobago, from the international arena. And I'm subject to correction here, but I strongly believe that we've had police officers from the Caribbean who have actually applied for the positions in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
Dr. Wallace, what assurances can you give that the Police Service Commission remains an independent institution?
Well, in terms of independence, I strongly believe in the whole concept of separation of powers, and that institutions must operate within their remit. And based on the mandate that I have been given as part of the commission, I certainly intend to perform this task without any political biases on my part, and hope that going forward, that as long as we fulfill our constitutional mandate, which is key here, then the other parties, we leave it up to them to do their bit. But certainly, we will remain an independent entity.
How many members does the Police Service Commission have at this time?
We have the full complement, which is 5.
What sort of challenges do you expect in carrying out your duties as the chairman of the Police Service Commission?
Well, there are several challenges that emanated from the report by Justice Jones. For example, she spoke about the need for more power. You have some staffing issues, and some of these things are issues that certainly will be worked upon. In my estimation, there are no challenges that are so insurmountable that we cannot fix them, right? So certainly I know that the issue of what we can do as a commission, that's a challenge. Because for many persons, anything that go wrong with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, even if it's a constable who has misbehaved in office, then there are calls for the Service Commission to take action, when the reality is that it's really beyond our remit.
When we talk about an acting police commissioner and an actual police commissioner in the post, what is the difference, and why is it important for Trinidad and Tobago to have not an acting, but someone who's actually in the post of police commissioner?
No, that's a really interesting question. It's a difficult question to answer. But from a personal perspective, when someone is acting in a position against when someone is confirmed in a position, it's my view that it gives that individual that sense of comfort that you can perform without that anything hanging over your head, right? So when you are confirmed in the position, I think it gives you more power, or a sense that you have more power and more authority to take action. Whereas when you are acting, remember, it's not your substantive post. You could be removed at any point in time. And, I'm of the firm conviction that an acting appointment should be for the shortest possible time, and again, potentially as a last resort. And therefore, with that in mind, I would like to see a commissioner of police. Now, when you have the commissioner of police and the acting commissioner of police, they perform the same task, right? The job doesn't change because you are acting. But I said it certainly gives you that comfort to know that you can perform. And then, it also gives that sense of longevity, right? So it's not a short-term plan, because we cannot have commissioners who are here for 1 year, right? You need to have a long-term commissioner, 5 years, etc. Again, if we look at what was done in Jamaica, and I'm privy to know what was done in Jamaica, for example, you have commissioners. I know you have Dr. Blake, who was recently appointed as a commissioner of police in Jamaica. And that's a long-term position, because I think Dr. Blake is in his early 50s. So you can set out your goals over a period of time, rather than planning for that short term, looking at 6 months to 1 year, etc.
I know you talked about some of the advantages of having somebody actually in the post. of a police commissioner. But are there any disadvantages of actually having someone there not acting but in the post?
I do not see any disadvantages of having a substantive commissioner. I firmly believe in any organization, you should have that distinct individual holding that position as the head of the organization. I know for some individuals, they think that, if you have one person in the position for too long, then, people tend to get corrupted and they get comfortable in the position. But if you have a strong team, right, your deputy commissioners, for example, who are constantly reminding you of your task, then I certainly don't think that any commissioner of police would get comfortable in the position. And then if you look at some of the statistics in crime in Trinidad and Tobago, I think if you have a commissioner for 10 years, that commissioner certainly will not be comfortable just thinking that, I'm in this position and I'm relaxed and I can be here for the next 10 years without taking any firm action.
And as we're talking about that, how does the Police Service Commission assess the post of police commissioner and deputy police commissioners?
Well, those are things that at this point in time, I have not really gone in depth into reading and assessing how it's done. I know that there's a fixed process in place, and maybe in due course we'll certainly be able to discuss that. But at this point in time, I won't be able to give much information on the process.
Sure, but is this something that is done annually, possibly at the end of the year?
There is a review process for the commissioners and deputy commissioners, mid-year and end-of-year review, but that's just the assessment, or not in terms of the actual appointment.
When Parliament debated your nomination as as a chairman of the Police Service Commission, concerns were raised about you being a member of the Elections and Boundaries Commission. How do you respond to this?
Well, again, as I mentioned earlier, the members of Parliament, they have a task to perform, and it's their mandated task to ensure that the persons who are selected and or appointed to particular positions, that they are fit for purpose. So it's part of the democratic process. Persons are nominated by the government. It goes to Parliament. There is a debate, and you ensure that the opposition has their say. So I see it simply as part of the democratic process. I was very much comfortable with it. I was very much comfortable with the questions that were raised. And certainly I didn't see my position, and I still do not see my position as a member of the Election and Boundaries Commission as having any conflict of interest. You look at the tasks and the mandates, and they are miles apart. So again, I reiterate that for me, that's a dead issue. It's a non-issue, but certainly I do have respect for the hallowed halls of Parliament. I have respect for the democratic process. And, it's something that I actually welcomed. Because if you pass that test, I think you can pass any other test.
You are the chairman of the Police Service Commission. Do you mind telling us who the other members are? And after your term, your 3 years, as you said, the tenure of the Police Service Commission, what is the one thing that you all would like to accomplish?
Well, the 4 other members, the returning member, you have Mr. Ian Kevin Ramdani from the previous commission. You have Mrs. Anika Fritz-Brown, Mr. Roger Baburam, and Mrs. Ethel Hector Berkeley. They comprise the entire team. From a personal perspective, I would certainly like to see changes in the commission, in how we do things. I would like to see a commission, or if I were to say the legacy that I would like to leave behind with my team, would be one where the police service has improved its output. That for me would be a major accomplishment. Let us see a reduction in crime. Let us see more police legitimacy. Let us see, for example, as a researcher, I want to see more research. People must be able to know what's happening in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. I would like to know the level of confidence that the members of the public have in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. So whilst we are recently installed, we are working on what we would like to see being done.
Your final thoughts?
Well, for me, it's just a pleasure to be appointed. I actually love service. So service the people, service the country, service the constituents. And because I have a dual role as a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, I believe in service to my students, service to people, service to the country. Hopefully at the end of the 3 years, the wider public will be able to judge our tenure as to whether we were successful or not. Just to urge the public to work with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to ensure that we all have a safer 2025 than what obtained in 2024.
Well, we have been speaking to the chairman of the Police Service Commission, Dr. Wendell Wallace. Thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. It's been a very interesting discussion, especially what we've seen over the years from the Police Service Commission. And we continue to look from the outside and see how the next 3 years, I know it's just November 22nd, you were appointed
Yes.
as the chairman.
Yes.
We continue to see and look forward to those next 3 years in terms of what we actually, what the Police Service Commission actually can accomplish.
Thank you so much, Sunil. It's a pleasure.
And just before we end, you can look out for a Delving Deeper recap on January 5th. It's definitely one you would not want to miss. On behalf of the entire crew here, to all the listeners and viewers, do have yourself a very Merry Christmas and a bright and prosperous 2025.